Not long ago, geneticists stumbled upon a mysterious variant in the blood of high-altitude Tibetans. It wasn't just unusual, it made their red blood cells behave like no other population on Earth. Most of us get thick blood and headaches in the mountains, but the Tibetans' blood remains thin and balanced. When scientists traced this special gene back through time, they found it didn't come from modern humans at all. It was a gift from a shadowy cousin we barely knew existed. That discovery cracked open a secret. Ancient Denisovan DNA is still swirling in our veins, quietly shaping the way we live, breathe, and fight disease. In this story, we'll unearth how these long-vanished hominins left behind genetic superpowers that help us thrive in some of Earth's harshest environments. And to appreciate the scale of this legacy, we first need to meet the mysterious creatures themselves. Ghosts in the cave. For decades, the only hint that Denisovans ever walked the Earth came from a single finger bone discovered in a Siberian cave. Unlike Neanderthals, who left behind skeletons and stone tools across Europe, the Denisovan fossil record is frustratingly sparse. Just that bone, a jawbone from Tibet, a handful of teeth, and skull fragments. Yet when researchers sequenced DNA from the finger, they realized that this ghost species was far more than a footnote. Hidden in the genomes of modern humans across Asia and Oceania were long stretches of Denisovan DNA. Those ancient segments showed that our ancestors interbred with Denisovans at least 3 separate times, spreading their genes from Siberia to Southeast Asia and even into South America. Denisovans weren't a single tribe. They were scattered populations adapted to different climates and environments. As the first section of our story shows, these ancient hominins weren't just rare breeding partners, they became integral contributors to our evolutionary toolkit. But their influence went far beyond heritage. Some of their genes gave modern humans remarkable abilities that we still rely on today. Borrowed breath on the roof of the world. The Tibetan Plateau towers above 4,000 meters and holds the world's tallest settled regions. For millennia, visitors who climbed these heights felt their hearts pound and lungs strain as thin air deprived their bodies of oxygen. Yet the Tibetans who live there don't suffer these symptoms. Their secret lies in a special version of a gene called EPAS1. This gene, often dubbed the super athlete gene, controls how our bodies produce hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen in our blood. In most of us, low oxygen triggers EPAS1 to flood the body with extra red blood cells. Over time, thickened blood can lead to dangerous clots and heart problems at high altitude. The Tibetan variant does the opposite. It raises hemoglobin only slightly, keeping blood viscous enough to carry oxygen, but not so thick that it clogs arteries. When scientists compared the Tibetan EPAS1 sequence to other humans, they discovered it was nearly identical to the Denisovan version and very different from all other human variants. Analysis showed that about 87% of Tibetans possess this special allele, compared to only 9% of their Han Chinese neighbors. Geneticists concluded that this advantageous variant must have been inherited from Denisovans, giving early humans a literal breath of fresh air when they moved into the mountains. This adaptation was so potent that it helped human settlers thrive where other species struggle. But as this gene reveals, Denisovans didn't just help us breathe, they also taught us how to stay warm when the world turned cold. Fire in our fat. Traveling from the lofty heights of the Himalayas to the frozen Arctic introduces another challenge: keeping warm. The Inuit of Greenland and their Native American cousins face relentless cold and a diet rich in marine fat. Researchers discovered that a particular region of the genome containing 2 genes called TBX15 and WARS2 plays a central role in cold adaptation by generating heat from a special type of body fat. When they compared the DNA of nearly 100 Greenlandic Inuit to global populations and ancient genomes, they found that the Inuit variant of TBX15-WARS2 matched closely with the Denisovan genome. This variant is present at high frequencies in Inuit and Native American populations, but almost absent in Africans. TBX15 affects how our bodies distribute fat and respond to colds, allowing individuals to generate heat through brown adipose tissue, a metabolic furnace that burns fat to produce warmth. The Denisovan version of this region appears to rewire the regulation of these genes, as differences in methylation and gene expression have been observed between Denisovans, Neanderthals, and modern humans. Scientists believe early humans migrating through Siberia and across the Bering Land Bridge picked up this Denisovan variant, giving them an edge against frostbite and starvation. So while one Denisovan gene helped mountain people breathe, another set our fat alight like a built-in stove. As remarkable as these thermal tricks are, they're only part of the Denisovan legacy. Our immune systems also owe them a debt.
Cranking up our immune thermostat. Survival isn't just about breathing and staying warm, it's also about fighting off disease. Modern humans inherited a powerful immune enhancer from denisovans in the form of a gene variant in TNFAIP3, which encodes a protein called A20. This protein normally acts as a brake on inflammation, preventing our immune system from overreacting. Researchers at the Garvan Institute found a variant in TNFAIP3, designated I207L, that came directly from denisovans. Unlike the harmful mutations that cause autoimmune disorders, this variant turns up inflammatory responses when needed. Experiments showed that immune cells carrying the denisovan variant produced stronger reactions to microbes. When mice, engineered with the variant, were exposed to a dangerous virus, they fought off infection better than those without it. The denisovan I207L variant is common in populations east of the Wallace Line, particularly in Papua New Guinea, where up to 5% of people's genomes derive from denisovans. Genetic signatures of positive selection indicate this immune boost was beneficial for early humans facing a barrage of pathogens in tropical environments. Essentially, the denisovan variant acts like a temperature dial for our immune system, tuning it to fight infections without tipping into harmful overreaction. This discovery shows how a single archaic gene can have outsized effects on our survival. But immunity isn't the only arena where denisovans quietly altered our biology. Superpowers in metabolism and fat. Beyond the headline genes, denisovans left a suite of other DNA fragments that tweak our metabolism and body composition. Some of these archaic variants are linked to how our bodies process fat and generate energy. For example, researchers have found denisovan-derived segments near genes involved in lipid metabolism, traits that could enhance the storage and breakdown of fat, potentially helping populations adapt to high-fat diets or extreme climates. Certain denisovan contributions may influence how our bodies build brown and beige fat cells, which produce heat when activated, an ability that could be vital for surviving cold environments. Other studies suggest denisovan DNA has subtly altered our immune pathways, nerve growth, and even the function of our skin and hair, though these influences are still being mapped. One striking theme emerges. Denisovan genes often modulate regulatory switches, like turning a thermostat or adjusting a dimmer switch, that control how our bodies respond to stress, rather than rewriting entire instructions. This regulatory role means that denisovan DNA can have far-reaching effects with minimal genetic change, a subtlety that helps explain why their legacy remained hidden for so long. The underlying mechanisms remain a subject of active research, but we can already see how these ancient threads weave into our daily lives. Next, we'll explore how scientists are uncovering these hidden signals and what they tell us about our shared history.
Unraveling the ghost signatures. Tracing denisovan DNA in modern humans is like following a faint perfume through a crowded market. Because denisovan fossils are so rare, scientists rely heavily on sequencing and comparative genomics. One clue comes from studying the lengths and frequencies of denisovan DNA segments in our genome. Shorter segments indicate older interbreeding events, as recombination gradually breaks up the archaic sequences. Populations in Oceania and parts of Asia often carry longer and more numerous denisovan segments, implying their ancestors interbred with denisovans relatively recently. By analyzing patterns in these segments, researchers have identified at least 3 distinct denisovan populations that contributed DNA to modern humans. Each denisovan group seems to possess unique adaptations suited to their environment, just as the Tibetans inherited the high-altitude variant and the Inuit inherited the cold adaptation genes. These insights are reshaping how we view human evolution. Rather than a single smooth line, our ancestry resembles a braided river of genes mingling and diverging. This braided history explains why people thousands of kilometers apart share bits of denisovan heritage, and it hints that other archaic groups we have yet to discover might have also interbred with our ancestors, leaving hidden fingerprints in our genomes. The search for these ghost cousins continues, and each discovery opens new questions about our resilience. So, what does carrying denisovan DNA mean for you and me today? Let's explore how these ancient gifts manifest in modern life. Living with denisovan DNA. You don't need to trek to Tibet or Greenland to feel the effects of denisovan genes. If you're of indigenous Papuan or Melanesian heritage,
Up to 5% of your DNA may trace back to denisovans, influencing everything from immune response to skin and hair traits. Even if your ancestry is predominantly European or Asian, you likely carry some denisovan fragments, perhaps giving you a slightly better fat-burning response or a modulated immune reaction. These genetic quirks don't make any of us superheroes in a comic book sense, but they are real advantages that helped our ancestors survive extreme environments. The fact that these variants persist suggests they still provide subtle benefits, though in some cases they might also contribute to modern health issues. For instance, some Denisovan and Neanderthal genes have been associated with changes in metabolism that increase susceptibility to conditions like type 2 diabetes when combined with contemporary lifestyles. Evolution is a trade-off. The same gene that helped an Ice Age hunter stay warm could influence how a person today stores fat. Understanding these trade-offs is more than an academic exercise. It helps doctors and researchers develop personalized medical approaches based on ancestral genetics. As scientists decode more Denisovan segments, we may discover new connections between archaic DNA and diseases, or even find ways to harness those ancient adaptations for treatments. But beyond practical applications, there's a deeper significance to knowing that our DNA carries whispers of Denisovans, a mosaic of humanity. In the end, the story of Denisovan genes reminds us that there's no such thing as a pure human lineage. Our species is a mosaic, created by countless encounters and interbreeding with neighboring hominins. Denisovans left us with the ability to breathe in the thin air of the Himalayas, to stay warm in Arctic blizzards, to fight infections in tropical forests, and perhaps even to fine-tune our metabolism. These gifts reveal how different human groups exchanged not just culture, but biology. They also show that adaptation can happen in surprising ways. Rather than evolving new genes from scratch, we sometimes borrow them wholesale from distant cousins. This strategy proved so effective that these archaic sequences still shape our lives tens of thousands of years later. As genetic technology advances, we'll undoubtedly discover more ancient threads woven through our genomes. Each one will offer a new story about how our ancestors survived, thrived, and ultimately became us. So the next time you catch your breath atop a mountain, endure a freezing night, or recover from a bout of the flu, consider that somewhere in your cells, a Denisovan's legacy might be at work.